You're not going to believe what happened when a nosy neighbor tried to play police and ended up messing with the wrong woman. This is the true jaw-dropping story of how one Karen called the cops on my wife, thinking she was just some quiet lady next door, but had no clue she was a federal weapons commander. From false accusations to a full-blown neighborhood meltdown, it all went downhill fast, but not for us. Stick around. It's a story you're not going to want to miss. And if you enjoyed this one, be sure to click subscribe, because tomorrow we have another special story for you. When we moved into Sycamore Lane, I had exactly 3 goals. Set up the Wi-Fi, avoid HOA meetings, and figure out which trash bin was for recycling before anyone yelled at me. My wife, Maya, had a different approach: silent observation, precise movements, and the kind of resting face that said, "I'm busy calculating something classified." She didn't talk much, not in the cold, snobby way, more like the James Bond kind of quiet, like her words had been cleared by a government filter before release. She carried herself with this controlled intensity, like she was always 5 moves ahead of everyone else and didn't need to brag about it. Neighbors would wave, she'd nod. Not a lot of chit-chat, no casseroles exchanged, just respectful distance and a steady hand on our front gate's lock. Then there was Karen, you know the type, platinum blonde bob, yoga pants that had never seen a downward dog, and an emotional support Starbucks cup permanently welded to her hand. She was the unofficial, self-declared neighborhood security force, moral compass, and HOA snitch. I swear she had binoculars tucked behind her petunias. The first time she approached us, we were unpacking boxes in the garage. Maya was hauling a crate labeled "Tools Do Not Drop" like it was made of cotton balls. Karen sidled up like a cat in Lululemon, eyes scanning everything like she was auditioning for CSI. Suburbia. Hi there, welcome to Sycamore. I'm Karencha of the Neighborhood Aesthetic Committee and also the Safety Liaison. Maya gave her the kind of nod you'd give a TSA agent after a pat-down. I smiled, holding out a hand. Karen ignored it. I just wanted to say we keep things very peaceful here. Quiet, predictable, she said, predictable like it was a threat. I made a joke about how we're very low-maintenance people. Maya didn't say anything, just kept unpacking. Karen's eyes narrowed a fraction. That was strike 1. The next week, Karen filed our first notice. Apparently, Maya's car, her matte black, low-profile SUV, was too tactical-looking and made the cul-de-sac feel militarized. I kid you not, militarized. Then came strike 2. Karen caught Maya in the garage at midnight with 2 uniformed individuals, both women, both with regulation boots and military posture. They were laughing about something, eating chips. Off the hood of Maya's SUV, Karen took photos, printed them out, slid them into our mailbox with a passive-aggressive note that read, "Just in case something unusual is going on. The safety of the community is our top priority." Maya read it once, shrugged, and shredded it. I, however, had questions. Like, who were those women? And why did Maya never seem surprised when these things happened? Look, I'd known my wife had a government job. That's what her resume said. Something about federal compliance and logistics. She had a badge I never asked too many questions about. Honestly, I assumed it involved boring, paperwork-heavy things like supply chain audits or infrastructure maps. Turns out I was way off. Strike 3 was a doozy. Karen knocked on our door the next morning with a clipboard and what I swear was a portable breathalyzer. "I've noticed some ... unusual patterns," she said, squinting like she'd been rehearsing a law and order monologue in the mirror. "People coming and going, lights on at all hours, garage doors opening late at night. I'm sure you understand how that can seem alarming." Maya stood in the doorway with her usual calm face, eyes flat as stone. "I mind my business," Maya said. Karen blinked, clearly thrown off script. "Well, some of us care about what happens in this neighborhood." "Exactly," Maya said. Then she closed the door with a kind of soft click that's louder than a slam. I laughed for a solid 10 minutes, right there on the stairs. But deep down, I had this weird feeling like maybe Karen had just poked something she didn't understand. That night, Karen stood across the street with her dog, an angry-looking Pomeranian named Captain, and just stared. For 20 minutes, Maya never looked back once. When I asked her about it, Maya was brushing her boots, not polishing. Brushing like she'd come back from a hike through a war zone. She looked up and said, "Some people need to feel powerful. Doesn't mean they are." And that's when I started paying more attention. I noticed how her phone never rang but buzzed in a strange, coded pattern. How she always sat with her back to the wall in restaurants. How she once caught a wine glass mid-fall without even looking at it. She didn't hide anything. She just didn't explain it. Meanwhile, Karen was building a case. We heard her talking loudly to another neighbor on the sidewalk. She never smiles. That's always a red flag. And those uniforms are no military surplus when I see it. She didn't know Maya was the real deal, but she was about to find out. It started with sticky notes. Not the friendly kind, like welcome to the neighborhood, or let's do brunch sometime. These were passive-aggressive poetry, left lovingly taped to our mailbox every morning like clockwork. Please park your vehicle within 18 inches of the curb, not 19, or garage doors should remain closed. After 9 p.m. per HOA Guidelines, page 47, subsection B, every one of them signed, Karen Community Safety Liaison. Maya didn't flinch. She never did. She'd read the note, blink once, then drop it in the shredder without a word. Not crumple, not tear, shredder like she was feeding it to a metal pet. But I was starting to feel the heat. Not because Maya was doing anything wrong, she wasn't, but because Karen was doing that thing nosy people do when they realize they have no actual authority. She got louder. She took to her porch like it was a watchtower, sunglasses on, dog leash in one hand, HOA bylaws in the other. I caught her once using actual binoculars. I waved. She ducked like I'd shot at her. Things escalated when Maya hosted a meeting in the garage one Thursday night. I say meeting, but it looked like 3 women in tactical pants, eating takeout, and quietly discussing something over what sounded like a topographical map. I stayed inside, because, frankly, I didn't want to know. Karen, however, very much did. She filmed the entire thing from across the street using what I later discovered was her son's drone. The next morning I found another note. I have recorded suspicious activity on your property. Weapons may have been involved. The community is watching. Maya read it. This time she didn't shred it. She saved it in a manila folder and wrote evidence across the front in all caps. I don't know why, but the way she did it made me feel like things were about to get biblical. Later that day, I noticed something new. Karen had installed a ring cam pointed directly at our driveway, not her own. Hours like she'd given up pretending this was about property values and decided to go full-blown neighborhood surveillance. Stayed still. Maya didn't bite. She didn't call the HOA, didn't threaten legal action, didn't even scowl in Karen's direction. She just kept doing whatever she was doing, like Karen's tantrum wasn't even worth registering. I started documenting everything, though photos of Karen's notes, videos of her pacing the sidewalk, timestamps of the drone, not because Maya asked me to, but because I figured someone had to play defense before this woman accused us of manufacturing plutonium in the basement. Then, on a sunny Saturday, everything exploded. It started with sirens, loud, fast, 3 cop cars, no lights, but definitely speed. They pulled up onto the curb outside our house like they were prepping for a hostage situation. One officer got out behind the open door, hand on his weapon. Karen was already on the sidewalk in yoga pants and victory mode. She was filming, smiling. I could hear her from inside. I told you, there were weapons. I heard gunfire. I think it's some kind of stash house. God knows what they're doing in that garage. Maya, who had been sitting in the kitchen drinking coffee and watching Jeopardy reruns, stood up like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. I'll handle it, she said. She didn't even finish her coffee. I peeked out the window, already calculating bail. Maya stepped outside with zero hesitation, hair tied back, calm as still water. She didn't raise her voice or wave her arms, just walked up to the officers with this quiet confidence that made even the guy with his hand on the Glock pause. Ma'am, we received a report. She held up her badge. Everything changed in 2 seconds flat. The officer nearest her blinked, then blinked again. I couldn't hear exactly what he said, but it was something like, "Oh ma'am, I'm sorry, we didn't realize," and then his entire body language shifted from prepared to breached, a nervous honor roll kid talking to the principal. Karen's voice turned up a notch. That badge could be fake. You're just going to believe her. She probably trained them to say that. Maya turned slightly, not toward Karen, toward the police. She's the one who filed the report. Yes, ma'am, the lead officer said, suddenly looking very, very uncomfortable. And she claimed she saw weapons. Heard gunfire. Yes, ma'am. Maya handed him a second badge. That one's for internal clearance. I'm Commander Maya Chen. I oversee secure federal weapons development and training protocols for the Western District. You'll want to verify that with Homeland. Karen stopped filming. The silence was so thick you could hear Karen's dog licking his paw. The officer took 2 steps back, made a very polite call on his radio, then nodded a lot. After another awkward pause, all 3 officers apologized, like deep apologies. One of them offered to file a statement against Karen for false reporting. Maya declined. She's not dangerous, she said, just loud. Karen finally spoke. You think you can intimidate people just because you have a badge and a garage full of who knows what? Maya turned to her, looked her dead in the eyes. I don't need to intimidate you, Karen, but I would advise you not to mistake quiet for weakness. Karen flinched like she'd been slapped with a rolled-up constitution. That was the moment it all flipped. Karen, who'd strutted the neighborhood like a mall cop with a megaphone, suddenly realized she'd picked the wrong target, not because Maya yelled, not because Maya threatened, but because Maya didn't have to. After the cops left, Karen slunk back into her house. She didn't film, didn't even stomp. Maya walked back in, poured herself another coffee, and said, "They brought the wrong caliber of drama." I stood there, blinking. "You've been very calm about all of this," I said. She sipped her coffee. "This, please. I've de-escalated cartel standoffs and once negotiated with a guy who tried to wire explosives to a vending machine. Karen is ... background noise. Later that night, I added the drone footage, the sticky notes, and a photo of the police visit to the folder labeled evidence, because something told me Karen wasn't quite done yet, but also neither was Maya. The thing about Maya is she never brags, ever. You'd never hear her say stuff like back in my special ops days, or when I was commanding a weapons convoy through the Rockies, because to her that wasn't impressive. It was just Tuesday. So when she pulled out those federal credentials, it wasn't some mic drop moment. It wasn't even dramatic. She just calmly reached into her inner jacket pocket, unfolded a trifold badge holder like it was her library card, and handed it to the nearest cop like she was confirming a dinner reservation. He took one glance, blinked fast, then looked up at her like she'd just told him he'd been directing traffic in the middle of a CIA operation. I swear, his posture changed instantly, like his spine realized it was standing in front of a federal weapons commander and adjusted itself out of sheer respect. "Ma'am," he said, suddenly very polite. I didn't realize you weren't supposed to," Maya replied. "You responded to a call. You did your job. No harm done." I was standing on the porch behind her, trying to look like a supportive husband and not someone slowly realizing he'd been married for 7 years to a real-life Jason Bourne with better skin. The second officer, younger, leaned in for a look at the badge, and I watched his eyebrows vanish into his hairline. "Commander Chen," he muttered. "Federal Weapons Division." Karen, who had been recording from across the street with her phone like she was the director of some low-budget exposed documentary, suddenly stopped filming. You could almost hear her mouth dry up. "She's military," she said to no one in particular, as if the word alone explained away all her conspiracy theories. Maya didn't look at her. She never looked at Karen unless absolutely necessary. It was honestly more devastating than shouting. The first cop cleared his throat. "Commander, is there anything we should be aware of?" The report mentioned gunfire and our suspected weapons stockpiling. "There were no firearms discharged," Maya said, keeping it clipped and neutral. "And the only thing being stockpiled on this property is tactical patience." Now, I didn't laugh. I didn't dare laugh, but I grinned like an idiot and turned my face slightly so the officers wouldn't see. Tactical patience. God, she was good. The lead officer nodded slowly, clearly trying to exit the scene without triggering an interagency incident. "Understood. If there's anything else we should do, please let us know." "You could talk to the woman who called in a false report," Maya said mildly. "She's standing over there, pretending to water a plant that's definitely plastic." Everyone turned in unison. Karen froze mid-pour like someone caught sneaking snacks into a movie theater. Her little Pomeranian barked once, like it felt the need to say something. Now, here's where it got delicious. The officers did walk over to Karen. I don't know exactly what they said. It was quiet, official, very "ma'am, this is a Wendy's" in tone, but I do know Karen's voice got loud for a second. Defensive, a lot of "I was just doing my civic duty, and there's no need to be rude." Meanwhile, Maya turned to me and said, "We'll need to log this. I'll send you the timestamp for the external camera." "You have external cameras?" I asked. She raised one eyebrow. "Of course, I have external cameras, right? Of course you do." Then she walked back inside like she hadn't just revealed her secret identity to the entire block. Later that night, we sat on the couch eating Thai food like nothing had happened. Maya was reading a document on a secured tablet that autolocked if she looked away too long. I was scrolling Reddit and half watching her, still piecing it all together. "So, Commander," she looked up. "That's what the badge says." I put my noodles down. "I thought you worked in logistics." "I do," she said. "Weapons logistics. For the federal government. Technically, I oversee testing, security, and emergency protocol development." That's the most boring, where you could have said that you're in charge of the country's deadliest toys. She shrugged. The real work is making sure no one uses them. I sat back, still processing, so all those meetings in the garage, security briefings, sometimes hands-on simulations, occasionally tech transfers that have to be handled off-grid, and the drone footage Karen took will be erased from her device by morning, she said, as casually as if she were talking about Netflix. I paused. You're not kidding, are you? She gave me the faintest smile. Nope. Meanwhile, across the street, Karen's blinds stayed firmly shut. No porch patrol, no binoculars, no 8 p.m. HOA circular walks. Radio silence. I heard she called the HOA president the next day demanding they put in a policy about unauthorized federal presence in residential zones. The HOA president, sweet 72-year-old Mr. Harris, told her that if Maya Spo was keeping the neighborhood safe, they should be thanking her. Karen didn't take that well. I saw her pacing her backyard later, on the phone, ranting in whispers to someone, probably her sister, or her lawyer, or her very unlucky therapist. Maya didn't respond. She just kept doing what she always did, working late, leaving early, and making sure our recycling bin didn't violate city ordinance. The only difference was now, if you looked real close, you'd see more neighbors giving her a respectful nod. A few even waved. One guy on the corner started saluting her. I don't think he knew how, but he tried. Karen, to her credit, didn't say another word to us directly, but the next week a for sale sign went up in her yard. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just a quiet little retreat. And Maya, she sipped her coffee and said, "Told you, tactical patience." A week after the police incident, the neighborhood was quieter than a library on a snow day. Karen's plastic tulips remained tragically unwatered. A little dog, Captain, stopped barking altogether, as if he too realized Mum had poked the wrong bear and was now trying to blend in with the potted ferns. But Maya, she was thriving, cool as ever. She didn't gloat. She didn't mention Karen's sudden vanishing act from the sidewalk gossip circuit. She just pulled out her laptop one morning, typed for 20 minutes with a calm, mechanical rhythm, and then said, "It's submitted." "What is?" I asked, halfway through a bagel. "Formal complaint, harassment, false reporting, abuse of emergency response services, filed with the county and the HOA board." She didn't even look up when she said it, just sipped her black coffee like a woman who'd done this before, multiple times, possibly in 3 different time zones. I blinked. Wow. You're not worried about retaliation? She tilted her head like I'd just asked if she feared squirrels. I'm the most boring version of scary. People don't come back from that. Turns out she was right. Karen Trido. She sent out an email blast titled "Is our neighborhood still safe?" to the entire block using some ancient Yahoo address. Maya forwarded it to me with one line, "She's really using Comic Sans." Karen's message read like a conspiracy blog had a baby with a next-door rant. Something about military equipment near homes, dark ops visitors, and a resident whose real identity is unknown. She ended with, "We must stand together as neighbors." Nobody replied. Nobody forwarded it. In fact, Mr. Patel, 2 houses down, told me he clicked reply all just to say, "Please remove me from this nonsense." Karen tried canvassing door to door next. That lasted 2 houses. Word had spread about the whole federal weapons commander thing, and apparently, people weren't too eager to stand together against someone who probably knew how to dismantle a drone mid-air using a coffee stirrer. Still, Karen wasn't one to go quietly. She made one final play. The HOA was hosting its quarterly community town hall at the local high school. Normally, it was a snooze-fest: budget updates, complaints about grass height, the occasional turf war over dog poop, but this time, someone had invited Maya to speak. "I think they want to humanize the whole government presence thing," she said, flipping through a presentation deck on her tablet. "You have a deck." "I always have a deck." The night of the town hall, Maya wore jeans, boots, and a simple black jacket. Nothing flashy, but somehow she still looked like she was about to brief the Pentagon and then disarm a missile using only her phone and a paperclip. We walked into the school auditorium, and I swear half the crowd turned, some with curiosity, some with a few with the expression of people who had just realized their neighbor might actually be the real-life inspiration for every cool, brooding Netflix hero ever. Karen was there too, of course, seated near the front in what I assumed she thought was a power position. She wore a blazer with shoulder pads. I wish I were making that up. After the HOA president finished mumbling about fence height regulations and budget surpluses, he introduced Maya. She stepped up to the mic, clicked her first slide, and said, "Hi, I'm Maya Chen. You probably know me as the woman who never waves back and brings her trash bins in precisely at 7:01 a.m. That got a laugh. Not huge, but warm. She had them. I work for the federal government. My official title is Commander. Yes, that's real. I oversee logistics, safety, and research for advanced defense systems. My role involves keeping things that go boom safely away from the people who shouldn't be near them. More murmurs, a couple of nods. You're not in danger, she continued. You never were. My work is highly controlled, tightly secured, and heavily regulated. Every late-night visitor, every delivery, every strange blip Karen reported, though, were people doing their jobs, quietly, respectfully, without harming a single tulip. That one landed. Then she paused. Just enough silence to let people lean in. But here's what is dangerous. Assumptions, paranoia, profiling. When someone chooses to fear what they don't understand instead of asking a question, or just minding their own business, they put others at risk. Real risk. Because every false report wastes time and resources. Every snap judgment weakens community trust. And every attempt to intimidate someone into conformity says more about the person doing it than the target. There it was. The mic wasn't dropped, but it hovered. You could feel the temperature in the room shift. Karen looked like she'd swallowed a lemon whole. Her arms were crossed so tightly it looked like she was holding herself together with duct tape and spite. Maya ended with a short Q&A. One neighbor asked if she could speak to their daughter's robotics club. Another asked if she'd be willing to consult on emergency preparedness. Someone even joked about hiring her to handle raccoons getting into the trash. Karen stood up. "Excuse me," she said loudly, stepping forward. "Are we just supposed to ignore the fact that there were weapons and uniforms, and that she never disclosed any of this until after the police were involved?" The room froze. Maya didn't flinch, didn't even blink. "Karen," she said, voice even, "you called the police under false pretenses. You filed a report about gunfire you never heard and weapons you never saw. You invaded my privacy, disrupted federal business, and endangered officers, responding to what they thought was an emergency, or because you were uncomfortable not knowing what was behind my garage door." Karen opened her mouth. Nothing came out. "You don't need to like me, but you do need to stop confusing your discomfort with danger." Then Maya sat down. The applause started slow. Just a few claps, cautious, then a wave, not a standing ovation. This was still a suburban HOA meeting, but it was real, it was respectful, and it was absolutely not for Karen. That night, as we walked home, Maya didn't say much. She didn't have to. Karen had been put in her place. Publicly, calmly, thoroughly. And the neighborhood, well, they finally saw what I'd known all along. Maya didn't need to flex to be powerful. Her stillness said enough. There's a certain silence that hits a neighborhood after a storm, not the kind with thunder and broken branches, but the social kind, the type where no one's quite sure if they should make eye contact at the mailbox or just pretend to tie their shoe until the coast is clear. After the town hall, Sycamore Lane was blanketed in that hush. Everyone suddenly became very interested. In lawn care, sidewalk conversations became shorter, nods stiffer, smiles tighter. Karen, of course, was nowhere to be seen. Her blinds stayed drawn, her front porch looked abandoned, and Captain the World's Angriest Pomeranian was conspicuously quiet, like even he knew Mum had lost the war. Her once daily neighborhood updates stopped cold. No more forwarded HOA bylaws, no more community watch alerts about suspicious joggers who turned out to be teenagers with AirPods just static. Then, the real sign came, a shiny for sale sign planted dead center in her perfect lawn, practically glowing under the porch light. No by owner, no cute little flyer box, just a cold corporate realty firm sign and a QR code that linked to a suspiciously vague listing. Charming 3B, our home in quiet, secure neighborhood, motivated seller. I think the phrase motivated seller is code for I need out before someone finds my group chat full of conspiracy theories and next door screenshots. I told Maya over breakfast. She nodded once, didn't look up from her email. Took her long enough, she said, sipping coffee like she hadn't just peacefully exiled someone from an entire zip code. And just like that, life returned to its strange, suburban normal. Maya went back to her odd schedule, leaving before sunrise, returning at unpredictable hours, having brief but intense meetings in the garage that involved whiteboards, lockboxes, and occasionally a woman who looked like she bench-pressed aircraft carriers in her free time. I'd long stopped asking questions. Every now and then, I'd hear her on the phone, voice calm and clipped, using terms like containment parameter and low-yield scenario. I once made the mistake of asking what that meant. You know, she said, not even looking away from her screen. Sometimes Loweld is the polite way of saying the building's still standing, but don't go inside. So, that cleared that up. Meanwhile, I got to enjoy the full arc of Maya's quiet legend growing in the neighborhood. She never bragged, never corrected anyone, but somehow her story kept spreading like a perfectly contained campfire. The guy on the corner who never waved before now gave her a respectful good morning every time he walked by. The local mail carrier started leaving our packages under the porch bench, extra neat and dry. A couple of neighbors even asked me casually, like they weren't desperate, if Maya might be open to giving a safety talk to their kids' scout troop or high school government class. Does she teach self-defense? One woman asked. She teaches strategy, I replied, because I figured that sounded cooler. Also possibly true. The only time Maya even acknowledged her new unofficial reputation was when the HOA president dropped off a handwritten thank you card. I didn't think anyone under 80 still did that. It said something about bravery, poise under pressure, and a model example of community service. Maya pinned it to the fridge, right next to our takeout menus. I like his penmanship, she said. I asked her once if it bothered her being watched, even if it was now with respect instead of suspicion. She paused, like she does when she's weighing the real question under the surface. I'd rather be watched with respect than with fear, but ideally, I'm just left alone. Suburbia's not built for that, I said. She smirked. Neither am I, you have to understand. Maya didn't hate suburbia, she just didn't trust it. All its rituals, block parties, yard flags, garage sales, they weren't bad, just inefficient, manufactured. She didn't fit the mold of friendly neighbor because she didn't see the point in pretending. And honestly, the neighborhood was better for it. No more HOA drama, no more gossip rings. People kept their eyes on their own driveways. Karen's house stayed on the market for 3 weeks. Not bad, considering the neighborhood had been the setting of an accidental Homeland Light showdown. Word had gotten around. The listing photos were flattering, but people talked. The open house was awkward, from what I heard. Maya and I watched from the porch as a couple with a baby stroller hesitated in front of the yard before crossing the street. They'll Google her name, Maya said, folding laundry like a machine. You think Karen's name brings up the town hall video? She made sure it did. I paused. Y2 made sure it did. She looked at me, just slightly. Public record is a beautiful thing. The house finally sold to a retired couple from out of state. Nice people, quiet, didn't ask questions. The first time they saw Maya, the husband nodded politely and said, "We've heard you're the one who keeps things calm around here." Maya just nodded back and said, "Welcome to Sycamore, no more, no less." And then, just like that, Karen was gone. It was almost anticlimactic. One morning she was there, and the next, a moving truck had eaten her lawn gnomes. Captain barked a sad, final bark, and then nothing. That night, Maya made pasta like from scratch. Flour on the counter, rolling pin, apron, the whole 9 yards. I asked her why the special dinner. She said, "Peace is worth celebrating." I poured the wine. We ate outside, on the back deck, where the night was still and quiet, the air thick with late summer, and not a single neighbor peeked over the fence. You ever miss it? I asked. The work, I mean, the adrenaline. Maya stared at the stars for a long second. It's not gone, she said. It's just paused. You think you'll get called in again? She nodded. Eventually, I looked at her, really looked. She wasn't just calm, she was ready, always was. She could fold laundry, chop garlic, and recite satellite coordinates without blinking. Her kind of quiet was never passive. It was the kind you earn, the kind that comes from surviving things other people can't pronounce. I leaned back and said, "Well, just don't leave me with Captain if that day comes." He laughed. "Deal." We finished dinner and sat there listening to the cicadas and the distant hum of sprinklers, the kind of suburban soundtrack that was supposed to be boring but now felt earned. Maya's phone buzzed once, a short coded vibration. She glanced at the screen, smiled slightly, then turned it face down. "Everything okay?" I asked. "For now," she said, "but I should probably check the perimeter tomorrow." She wasn't joking. And as I sat there watching her gather the plates, I realized something simple and strange. The woman I married had gone toe-to-toe with federal chaos, weaponized gossip, and a suburban dictator named Karanan still managed to fold the fitted sheets better than I ever could. So yeah, peace was restored, mostly, but Maya was always watching.